Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We could not be happier to have everybody here together to celebrate Sam in his end-of-life planning, which was a hoot to try and get him to admit that he was ever going to leave this earth. Peter and I managed to wrangle the short list of wishes that, come on in guys, come on in and sit down, that he had. And the first thing that came out of his mouth was really, I want to be celebrated. I want people to understand that there is no crying because he is not here, because he is going to live through every one of us through the stories we tell and the things we share and the spirit that we carry and emulate in our connection with him. So the intent of today, we've chosen this place, and I think Peter and I have told all of you, but it felt so special to us. We learned about it as a surprise, and as we learned about it with Dad, it resonated with all of our beliefs. Being a place where people are embraced from every faith, background, and denomination. The poor young woman that was told no, she couldn't be buried across the street because her parents were not married. This place was built for her and for all people that were told no. And in the Barash family, you don't just tell people no for the wrong reason. And so this place embodies all of that and is very special to all of us. As soon as we walked in, we felt it. And then the history. We all know one of Sam's favorite loves, and my brother's favorite love, and my son Max's favorite love is history. Me, don't ask me, I am not smarter than a fifth grader. I do not know dates or times or wars or any presidents or anything else. I reject history outside of architecture, which I celebrate historically every day. So welcome here, and thank you for being here. It means a great deal to our family to see so many faces that were touched by my father, Sam. As his oldest child, I have the honor of sharing just a few words about the incredible man that he was. Sam was a father, a mentor, and a friend to so many. His wisdom was renowned, and though he was a hard man to argue with, his advice was often spot on. In my life, I tested much of what he said, and I found at least 85% to be true, much to my disappointment. From simple truths like nothing good happens after midnight, which I admit I tested a few times during my college years until I became known as Cinderella, as I am now and then always home before midnight. The other simple truth that I think was unique to me is that trust is like an eggshell. Once it is broken, it is very hard to be put back together again, like Humpty Dumpty. And his guiding mantra to me as a young lady, since I was 12 years old, was never let yourself to be dependent on a man, because if you do, you may find yourself stuck living in a way you don't enjoy, and you will have no recourse to change it. And then he wondered why the first 10 boyfriends I had were all broke. You said the most central character trait that he and I shared is that we lived, and I continue to live, staying true to ourselves always, unapologetically, and relentlessly moving or going around as a last resort any obstacles that were in our way, never taking no for an answer. These are just a few of Sam's words that have guided me, and you will hear from others speaking today. There are enough Samisms to fill an encyclopedia titled The World According to Sam. One of the greatest gifts my father gave us was his commitment to family and community. He taught us to honor the legacy of our Grandpa Max and Grandma Ruth. You'll see one photo of them displayed on the front table. Sam installed in us the responsibility to live up to the values of being driven, responsible, contributing to the world in meaningful ways. Education was the corner of everything. And we knew very well the sacrifice that Grandpa Max and the 5 Moskowitz sisters, Grandma Ruth being Sam's mom, sacrificed everything coming to America. If you ever doubted the importance of supporting each other, Sam was quick to remind us, usually with a story that started with, "Back in my day, all my friends in the kindergarten club and my cousins were at the house in Nantasket because everything started and ended at the beach." And they would be there and were there, experiencing everything together and supporting each other through everything always. And that extended as he continued his life to the Janczak family, who have continued to be a part of our lives since he welcomed Monica into our family, incorporating all of their traditions into ours. This remained to be true until the day he passed, with a magical Christmas Eve we all shared just last Thursday, together in the same house where I shared my first Christmas Eve with the Janczaks over 49 years ago, with Sam's favorite Polish sausage and pierogies, and will continue to be true of the family values we hold and the way we intend to foster and keep these connections through the next generations in spite of his absence. This includes the new family he gained with Max and Makaria's many siblings, Carla, Carlos, Christian, Bianca, and Cassandra, who will all be joining us for his Florida send-off. Peter's wife Beth, and my husband Dominic, who he loved as he would as his own children, while welcoming all the Bollinger family and the Lucas family to ours as well. Once you are family, it is forever. Just last night, when I couldn't call Dad to tell him about how much I miss him, I called Lenny Geller instead, the last standing member of the kindergarten club. And it was really comforting to reminisce. We laughed about them taking their walks on the beach together, and he reminded me about the time they walked an entire 3 miles before Lenny could even get one word into the conversation. Hence the name The Mouth, that was started in high school and carried all the way to his new group of friends, older than dirt, where when I crashed their coffee outing, that is generally men's only, I love to be in a boys club, and I just kept showing up, whether they invited me or not. I came to find his mouth taped shut for his 80th birthday, just so they could get a chance to speak before he would. And I loved that. I never thought of a piece of tape on my father's mouth, but I don't think I could get away with that. Well, they could. And when Dad was struggling to squeeze every drop of life out of the days we shared in the last year, Rose and Max Janczak became the Sam Whisperers, helping to corral him to rest when he needed to, or inspiring him to keep doing exercises when he needed to build strength. And Sean didn't miss a Bears game, while Kyle and Jamie were there to keep him company so that he felt something important happened that day, because everybody knew Sam had to do something important every single day, and he did. California cousins traipsed throughout the year with visits to share and celebrate and remember our family legacy and celebrate all the joy they shared with Sam. The older than dirt group relocated their coffee times to the Clarendale and still met Dad so that he could be there without feeling like he was missing out, or God forbid he asked for a ride to video. Asking help was one thing that he had a hard time learning until the very end. They took him just last week, or a few weeks ago, to a haircut, to the meal, and to the bagel to celebrate his last meal at the bagel. And so he got to do it all. He equally enjoyed all of his time with Manya and the exciting things she inspired him to do, from actually claiming that he liked watching opera on the movie screen. That was a first, Manya. He's been to the opera many times and never enjoyed it unless he was with you, and dragging him out of his zip code, kicking and screaming all the time. That did not let him stop her. He always spoke with admiration of the closeness of family and the way it is modeled in ours along every branch, and missed that we couldn't spend more time with the California cousins and their kids, Lee, Scotty, and Marty, and the Boston cousins, Arlene, Alan, Mary, Marcia, Claire, Sandy, and Paula, the immediate children and their spouses of the 5 Moskowitz sisters. I'm so glad that as adults that we are all passionate about continuing these relationships and helping to carry them from generation to generation. My father encouraged me to be independent and self-reliant. He was famous for pointing out the worst case scenario in every new venture to protect me from any harm. And I saw something on Instagram. I'm very sorry, Dad. I am going to move from the worst case scenario to imagining in 2025 the best possible outcome. And I know he'll be watching over me. He might have a few things to bitch about, but he'll protect me along the way. So get ready for the ride, Dad. We're switching gears. He made sure I leveraged my education and built a strong professional network. His guidance shaped my career in ways I hadn't imagined. For example, when I wanted to take a gap year, he presented me with a choice. Either stay in school or pay for it yourself. So, goodbye gap year. And when I wanted to go to community college after graduation to flip houses, he said, how about I pay for graduate school? And I ended up getting a master's degree in engineering, something I might not have chosen without his influence. I guess you could say he flipped my career plans instead. Sam had a unique perspective on life and risk-taking. He often watched my adventurous spirits with a mix of admiration and terror. Despite his worries, he respected my courage. He admitted that once, because not to fuel the already very brightly shining flame. And he watched me, even if he thought I was jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. He learned that in our 56 years together, he could trust that while my road that I took to get to my destination was bumpier, steeper, more dangerous, and way more fun, I had the same calculating, problem-solving mind that he had. And that once I reached my destination, he trusted it would be well worth the effort when I got there. Another significant part of Sam's legacy, and again resonating with this very special place, is his dedication to understanding and supporting the immigrant experience, a big part of our family heritage. He believed in the power of community and shared with us how to be an American, which I have expanded and continue to use to support immigrant communities in every way that we can as a family. As I close, I want to just express my deepest gratitude for the lessons my father taught me, the experiences he provided for me, and the mentor he was to me and our family. His wisdom, strength, and love will remain with all of us in the ways we emulate him and the stories we will tell him. Thank you, Dad, for everything. We will carry your legacy forward, and you will always be a guiding light in our lives. Thank you all so much for being here to celebrate Sam's life with us. And now I'll call up Max, our son, to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'd like to thank you all for being here today to celebrate the life of my grandfather, the Mensch, Sam Bernard Barash. For those of you who don't know me, I'm his oldest grandson, followed by my little sister, Makaria, and my 2 cousins, Lucas and Sadie Barash. It's truly an honor to stand before you today and share a few words about the incredible man who shaped my life in so many ways. Grandpa Sam wasn't just a grandfather to me. He was a father figure, a mentor, a best friend, and a true source of wisdom. After my parents' divorce when I was 7 years old, I would characterize myself as angry, stubborn, defiant, and erratic, and some of those things might still be true today. I'm still working on it. And my relationship with my father was inconsistent at the time. And I lost myself because I'm reading on an iPhone. moves. Sorry. And my mother, who just spoke and is sitting here in the front row, literally did not know what to do with me. And I don't blame her, honestly. I don't think anybody in this room could tame 7-year-old Max. And whenever they create the time machine, go back and give it a shot. It's not going to work out. But Grandpa Sam could, and he did so with ease. Without rhyme or reason, to me, his word was gold. It was unconditionally respected. And the list of things he taught me is endless and impossible to capture in my short speech today. I could go on forever on how he influenced my education, my personality, my self-esteem, and even down to the syntax I use in regular conversation. So instead, I'm going to share 3 maxims, or what my mom calls Samisms, that have been engraved in my brain and soul forever. A maxim is a short, memorable statement that expresses a general truth, principle, or rule of conduct. And each of these maxims was connected to a specific age and moment in my life. So by the time I was 10 years old, I knew that you get what you get and you don't get upset. By 16, I learned that if you save your money, one day your money will save you. And as most recently, as I navigate young adulthood by trying to make calculated decisions about my future, through our conversations, I've learned that if you think you can plan or know where you'll be 30 years from now, you're wrong. So don't stress over decisions you believe are more important than they seem to be. So to Grandpa Sam, who may or may not be looking from above, whatever you believe, thank you for being a father figure, my teacher, and my guide. Your wisdom, humor, and love will stay with me forever. You taught me to accept life as it comes, to embrace responsibility, and to meet the unknown with courage and hope. I don't want to say goodbye, and I won't say goodbye. I don't think any of us need to. His impact wasn't confined to me, it was shared by everyone here. And if you look around at the people next to you, you can see that he's living through us, the people who will unconditionally carry on the lessons and love that he taught us. So the last thing I'd like to say is l'chaim to his life, which was so beautifully lived. Thank you. And Max from the Jans. Sadie, my cousin, is coming from next.
Hi everyone, I'm Sadie, Sam's granddaughter. Grandpa Sam and I had this ongoing joke when I was younger. Every time he'd drive me anywhere, he'd ask me if I was comfortable, to which I was trained to reply, I make a living, Boston accent and everything. He thought it was the funniest thing, even though I had no idea what it meant at the time. He was the best grandpa I could have ever asked for. Everyone tells the children in their life they can be anything they want when they grow up, that their future is limitless. But he really made me believe it. When I wanted to be the next Picasso in kindergarten, he told me my deformed drawings were the most beautiful things he'd ever seen. When I decided I wanted to be a journalist, he complimented me on all my stories for the school newspaper. The very last time we hung out one-on-one, he told me I was going to be the first female president of the United States. It is because of him that I know no dream is unattainable, and it is in honor of him that I will live my life bravely, chasing every goal and aspiration. I love you, Grandpa. Thanks for playing Monster with me at Oz, even when you're tired. Thanks.
Good afternoon. For those that don't know me, I'm Kyle Janzak, and Sam was our uncle. In addition to being our uncle, he was also my godfather. For those that don't know, godfather makes a pledge at a Christian baptism to be a mentor for the child, to play a role in their upbringing and development. For Uncle Sam, Those critical life skills included learning how to read the daily racing form. By the time I was 10 or 11, we would frequent the off-track betting parlor on Weed Street for lunch. Did he want to spend time with me? Did he want to exploit my propensity for math? Did he want a handicapper that he only had to pay a couple bucks to for winners? I think we know the answer was a little bit of all of the above. After our dad passed away almost 20 years ago, he and my Aunt Monica were vital to our family's survival. We, without question, would not be here where we are today without all the love and support that they provided, both from a time and financial commitment standpoint. Whatever my mom needed, he and my aunt were there. He was like a second father to me. And our relationship evolved like any father-son relationship would. I was the typical high schooler nodding along to his sage advice of, just don't get so drunk you throw up on your shoes, as I went off to college. Then in my early 20s, I moved into his famous basement and was living there when my Aunt Monica unexpectedly passed away. I think it was crucial that I was there to help both of us deal with that loss. No matter what the topic of conversation, I felt like I was learning some pivotal life lesson mixed in amongst nothing more than shooting the shit, grieving somebody that we both truly loved. When my wife and I were planning our wedding last year, we didn't want a rigid, formal religious ceremony, and I knew right away that there was no one better suited for handling the moment of marrying us than Uncle Sam. From my birth right up to these last few months, he's been a pillar of my life, and I'm going to miss him more than anything.
I'm stealing one of Max's maxims for this speech. One of Sam's favorite sayings was, you get what you get and you don't get upset. And Sam sure as hell got a lot out of life. A man could tell a story, and he had plenty of stories to tell. From the Tambourine to the Coast Guard and CCC, as well as some things we probably shouldn't be talking about on these hallowed grounds. Sam lived the life of a dozen men, one of whom was named Skip. But again, we shouldn't be talking about that. But not only did he give what he got, he gave just as much, if not more. After our father died, Sam and Monica were there for us. They were like a second set of parents to us. And after Monica died, Sam was there for me. Monica and I would go to lunch every Friday, and after she passed, Sam joined me on those lunches. I still remember the first meal that I spent with Sam. This was before Monica and my father had passed. I was maybe 9 years old, and he was taking me to sushi, which I'd never had before, and I wasn't that enthusiastic about eating raw fish. But I went, and I had a great time. I learned how to use chopsticks. The sushi chef carved me a little sailboat out of a carrot, and the sushi wasn't as disgusting as I thought it would be. I got shrimp, and I got a California roll, and Sam convinced me that I should try this one new thing that I hadn't tried before. I had an eel, and to this day, it's still my favorite piece of sushi, and I never would have tried it if it wasn't for him. He showed us to experience new and different things, and for that, I will be forever grateful. Now, Sam was a Sox fan, and my family has always been Cubs fans, and I know there's supposed to be some sort of rivalry between the two teams, but I never felt that. I always liked the Sox, because Sam would take me to games. So because of him, I hate the Sox less, and I always write down where I park in parking lots. Because one game, we went there, and he forgot where we parked. We ended up walking around, looking for our car for probably over an hour. And he kept asking, you don't remember where we parked our car? I'm like, I'm 11 years old, this is your car. 3/4 of the parking lot had left before we finally found our cars. It was always an experience with Sam, and there was never a dull moment. But it comes down to this. Sam owed us nothing, but he gave us everything. And that was just the kind of guy he was. He helped make us who we are today. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not so sure, but it's true nonetheless. We got what Sam gave us. We got what we got. And although it's sad that he's gone, there's nothing to be upset about, because we got to share our life with him. this as well as they did, but I'll give it a go. So I'm the youngest of them all, and so I can't speak to the actions that they did when I was so young to save my family, whether it be the house or whatever it was. But I am going to talk about the impact that he had on me personally at a time when he really owed us nothing, that he had done so much. When I was deciding where I was going to go to physical therapy school, everyone was encouraging me to go the cheaper route of the University of Illinois, Chicago. But my Uncle Sam was one of the few pushing me to go to Northwestern. And he had the sage advice of, think about who your classmates are and who will be surrounding you. It's not just your teachers, but also iron sharpens iron, and you do not want to ever be the smartest person in the room. And luckily, for the 2 years that I lived with him, I never was. If he talked to any of you, when I lived with him, he may just talk about how I had textbooks all over and I was studying all of the time. But what I never told him was that every week we would talk about what nights we were free, and we would schedule at least one dinner. And so I spent those late nights studying because I knew that those dinners with him meant more than any class I could attend that week or any hour of sleep I could have gotten. It was just hanging out, just talking, except every word he said to me, I took as gospel, and I went from an immature, unable to express emotions man to someone that I think is finally on the right path. And I owe it to Monica and Sam for that, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. And then towards the end, I got a gift that I couldn't be more grateful of, and that was I actually got to repay him for the knowledge that he helped me attain. And so I was able to take him to appointments, and we would have visits, and if he felt up to it, we'd do some exercise, but mainly it was just for the time that we could have. And just every time he said, you don't need to drive me. I said, I know I don't need to, I want to. And I wouldn't let him take a cab, no matter what, because I knew I was lucky that this time around I was mature enough to understand how lucky I was to have the opportunities presented to me, and I was going to take advantage of every single one of them. And so I owe it to Sam that I am the person I am, that I am the clinician that I am, and that I have somewhat of a path formed ahead of me, and I have no one to thank except him, his wisdom, and his willingness to share everything with me that I can't share with my mom.
I'm Marty Barash. I'm Sam's not youngest. I guess I'm not the youngest nephew. But I'm part of the California contingent. And I have the privilege today to read something my sister wrote. My sister Lee, who's back in California today and couldn't be here. And I've also been trying to broadcast this to folks on the West Coast. Now they have to look at a very unflattering view of my chin. So please bear with me. And I say that to those watching on Zoom. And again, this is from my sister. One of my first memories in life is my Uncle Sammy bringing me milk lollipops from Brigham's in Boston. Whenever I was sick as a little girl, I can remember him coming over and bringing me a treat. Some of my very fondest memories are of things I did with my Uncle Sammy. Going to the racetrack in Chicago, being in Nantasket Beach, and endlessly waiting for him to wake up. And taking a very short vacation with him and my father. Sammy was truly one of the people in this life that Ronnie and I cherished. That's Ron, my brother-in-law. We may not have seen each other often, but when we did, it was always joyous. Ronnie and I will always smile when we think of Uncle Sammy. We were so lucky to be able to see him in May, and Ronnie helped him plant his garden. No words can really express what it feels like for someone to leave this earth. We can truly say that the memory of our Uncle Sammy will always be a blessing to Ronnie and I.
And I'm Scott Barash, and I'm a nephew. He always would, in our conversations, he would start with, "Hello, Wojciech." Whether I was 8 years old or 68 years old. "Hello, Wojciech." And that was nice because it allowed me to combine those instant childhood memories with my adult memories. It was full of his endearment, and you really, truly felt it when he would say that. He was, for many, the favorite uncle. I can see that in the group. You know, he was our favorite uncle too. And partially, I guess, you know, you got to kind of give it a little bit of a memory. You know, in the '60s, when I was very young, it was this very suave, very handsome, dressed in to the nines in shirts that I would never have worn, stars and stripes. He was so cool, and he was the cool uncle. And his visits were always fireworks, lightning, and he was, you know, there was a certain lightning to him because, you know, he'd kind of throw bolts every now and then. I think people have kind of discovered that. He had that kind of bolt-throwing attitude. But, you know, but I really want to kind of put it into another perspective because whatever the issue, if an issue annoyed him, it's because it didn't make sense. And he wouldn't let it go. And that would undoubtedly cause a conversation. I think other people have kind of experienced that experience that really prompted you to think. He was really focused on making you think. It was to solve the issue. And it was a wonderful process for him. Sometimes I called it caustic creativity, but it was more or less just kind of like, you know, there's got to be a way to do it. So now one last example here, and hopefully maybe some of you can contribute to this. You know, you've all heard of, you know, you can't put a square peg in a round hole. But if you said that to Uncle Sam, what would he say? What the heck were they thinking about doing that in the first place? Why didn't they just go and remanufacture and go and make us, you know, the round hole fit in the round hole? It wouldn't make sense. It would be something that he would just want to find a solution for and fix it. And that was my home. So I do want to just kind of say, for the people who live on the West Coast, Marty, myself representative, he was deeply, deeply, deeply loved. And we'll miss you. So thanks.
Now, I'm going to speak a little louder. If I get too loud, let me know. I'm Craig Maddox, and I'm Sam Barash's friend. I've been his friend for a long time, and as I thought about encapsulating everything I knew about Sam, everything came out in the form of Sam stories. This happened, and this happened. And they were related in some ways, but mostly they're all over the place. I thought, this is going to be the most disjointed thing I've ever heard in my life if I present this. So I looked for a common thread throughout everything that I had written, all these various, anecdotes. One of them means I have to wear my glasses. Stories from his restaurant, stories from CCC, stories from our bad golf outings, and from the Older Than the Dirt guys. A whole bunch of seemingly unrelated anecdotes. Hopefully, they're suitable for this venue. I did take to heart the warning to make sure that we were in a place that was cherished and not to save other stories for later. We'll see. But what did I find that was through all of it in all of my stories? Everything I talked about with him was about friendship. I discovered, even though I've known him for 45 years, that Sam's superpower was being a friend. Sure, he has many other things. He's educated, he's caring, he's creative, but his superpower was being a friend. Let me give you some examples, some proof that he was a master of being a friend. And I may include some instances that are just good stories. Let me ask this question. Who do you know in their 80s that still is getting together and meeting with old friends from when you were in grade school? How about him? The last one of them left. The last one of them left. But those friends were dear to him. And they knew him, and they knew him well, and they loved each other. They got together forever, including having some of them actually stay with him sometimes while he watched over them. The one story he liked to say to describe how close they were was one of the reunions that they had later on in life. They were all, I think, in their 60s. And he said, I was just sitting there thinking about what it was like when we got together in the streets back in Boston. And he said every day we'd sit there, and then my dad's car would come around the corner, and he'd drive in the driveway, and he'd park the car. And so Sam said, I think I'll check to see how their memory is. He said, hey, anybody remember my dad's license plate number? And to his surprise, they all went in unison and could read out the exact number that was his dad's license plate number. They chanted it correctly for him. Now, speaking of numbers, another story that came along was when I first met him, he was working at Tambourine, high-class restaurant in Chicago. He was doing this with Howard as he does with some other things later on in his life. And he was running the place, and the place was named Tambourine. And the numbers part of this comes into the number of letters in the word tambourine. Because they were making their menu, they decided they'd lay out the menu for the Tambourine with their logo centered, and then 5 of the letters of tambourine on one side of the logo, and 5 of the letters on the other side of the logo. Well, that was fine for the first 5 letters that said Tambo, but the second 5 letters said urine. Not necessarily the most appropriate thing to have on your dinner menu. So they decided that the best answer to this was to quickly go out and have things reprinted, and to Howard's chagrin, give him a hard time, having to misspell the word tambourine for the rest of the time that that restaurant was open. What else about being a friend? I've heard his family talk about this, but it wasn't just the family. It was friends too. He opened his home to everyone, just about. Not come over for dinner, not come over for coffee, not stay for a little while. It was the Ritz on Grant Place. Go down in the basement, we got a shower for you, you can stay as long as you need. There was always some gremlin living in the basement at Sam's place. It's the kind of giving guy he was, and he loved having those people there. Another example of what a friend is, they say a friend, the hard thing on a friend is when you have to say the tough things to them. You know, anybody can tell you, yeah, you'd hope that somebody would tell you if your tie was crooked or your fly was open. You know, you need a friend to do that. Some people are too shy. Well, that wasn't exactly Sam. And so Sam, when he decided he was going to talk to me about something, he went about it in his more direct manner. And he walked in to my office one day and he said to me, he says, you know what? The problem with smoking, and I was a smoker at the time, is that you really look stupid. Okay, Sam, thanks. I appreciate that. Okay, it got me right. It hit me right between the eyes. I have to say that. Here I am here trying to act like I'm intelligent, and I'm not fooling anybody because of my behavior. It was what made me quit smoking. He had that effect on me, on that life, with that comment, that straightforwardness. Over the years, we worked together at CCC. And I came over to CCC pretty early in its career. And then a couple years later, Howard showed up. Excuse me, not Howard. Howard brought Sam over from the restaurant. And Sam was going to do the operations, run operations for the company. So I went in to check him out, see what he was like. I mean, I knew him, but I didn't know what it was going to be like to work with him. So I went in there and I started to talk to him. Now, when I say I started to talk to him, that really doesn't mean that I started to talk to him. It means I started to listen to him. Okay, I was in there and I was going to try to help give him a little bit of the wisdom of what we'd learned about this business, these idiosyncrasies and things like that. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this story and that story and this, and so I finally decided, look, he's being straightforward with you. I'm going to take a chance. I'm just going to say to him, as frankly as he did, to me, he hadn't said the smoking thing to me yet, by the way. This was early, before we knew each other well. So I said to Sam the following thing. I said, do you ever close your mouth? And then I held my breath, because I didn't know what his reaction was going to be to that thing. And he got this big smile on his face. You know what he said to me? He said, you sound just like my wife. I mean, what kind of a thing to say that is that? So here's a guy with no ego, with no defensiveness, with nothing but to give and to recognize his own frailties and his own shortcomings. And by the way, that theme about talking does run through almost every story that everyone spoke about. So, and some of the other ones I'll talk about in a minute as well. Oh gosh, yes. He also would have his times when he'd temporarily forget all these wonderful attributes and characteristics that he had, and he would start acting like a real jerk. Okay, Now, what would prompt this wonderful man to change all of a sudden and act like this? Well, I'll tell you what it was. It was waiters and waitresses in restaurants. Now, he had done his time in the food service business, and he must have been badly abused at that time. I never heard any bad stories about it. But he obviously had some wounds because he was taking it out, in my opinion, on some of these poor people. But my favorite one is, there's Manny's Delicatessen on the south side. There's a guy that's worked there maybe for 40 years or so. And I went to lunch with Sam there probably 50 times at least. And every time it was exactly the same. There's this one old guy that waited on him behind the counter, was there forever. And he'd spot Sam coming. And he'd take a deep breath and go, and then he'd say to Sam in his best polite, screw you words, oh, hey, welcome, sir, what can I do for you today? Well, then began what I would call the typical contest, which would be Don Rickles versus the Grinch. Okay, this was the most fake friendliness, fake customer service, back and forth I ever heard in my life. He'd say to him first, he'd start out like this. Is the soup hot today? Of course the soup's hot, sir, no problem, the soup's hot. He said, are you sure? He said, you got a microwave, why don't you put it in the microwave? Yes, sir, I'll put it in the microwave. Are the bagels fresh, Sam would ask? Yeah, they're fresh. He said, never mind, I don't want one of those anyway. Then he'd say, oh, give me a corned beef on rye. And by the way, he said, that corned beef, I don't want to cut from the ends. I want to cut from the middle. I want to cut thin. And I want the bread also. If the bread's fresh, I take it. And I don't want any end pieces of bread either. And this guy would go on, and banter would go on between Don Rickles and the Grinch until finally he would give up. And nobody ever lost character. They all both of them pretended like they were being polite to one another the whole time. Now, why did I keep going back for this? I don't know. It was like a sideshow. But I loved it every single time I went there. Then I think the best thing that he ever did for me, which was he kept inviting me to join his group. We call ourselves Older Than Dirt. There's Ed and Matt and a few of them are here and that. We get together with them either by Zoom or some other way 3 times a week. We sit and we swap lies, talk about our ailments, although we usually try to keep the doctor's visits and things to a 5-minute maximum. He would, talk about everything, things like, why in the world don't any of our kids want any of our stuff? He said, I got china, I got a fondue pot, I got, all these things that in my age, they were real popular back when we all first got married and started. But that was the gift that he gave me, is to join that group. And they're a wonderful group. And we talked about all kinds of things like that. And then as I arrived there, the first time I came to a meeting, I noticed that the only objects that were on the table at the meeting was a softball and some odd-looking stick. And after a while I asked, well, what is that? Well, the softball was being thrown by, oh, hi Tommy, I just didn't see you back there. Another one of our group came up. It was Tommy would throw it at him to try to get him quiet. And the Ed had brought this African talking stick from a tribe in Africa that was designed to teach people what they should learn in kindergarten, which is to take turns talking. But So that was what was on that table, and I learned later that it sounded a little extreme to me until I heard the story that Moji mentioned earlier, which the guys had actually duct taped his mouth shut earlier. So this was actually a step back in the level of that. As Sam became less mobile, and it was mentioned before, he didn't even want to walk the couple blocks over to Vanilla, and then he didn't want to. We started to come to him. We'd have a meeting on Monday, then we'd go to his house on Wednesday, then we'd Zoom on Friday, and then we'd do that over at the house on Grant Place. On Wednesday, we'd go to his house, and he'd make this special blend of coffee that he made for all of us, and was a great host. And then when he moved out there, we followed him, and we moved to his next place that he went to, the self-help place up north. And then again, when he moved out into Clarendale, we moved out there to meet with him. That group of men meant the world to Sam, as he did to us. When I was talking with him about where he was going to be located, he said, "Well, I want to be close enough that you guys can still get together." And I assured him that wherever we went, we'd follow him, and which we did. And as a matter of fact, the last week, when it was Christmas on Wednesday, which was the day we usually would go over to visit him, we of course couldn't go over on Christmas, so we rescheduled that for Friday morning, and unfortunately, that was a meeting that he was unable to keep. We will keep a seat open in honor of our fallen comrade. Rest in peace, and thank you, Sam.
I am Peter, his son. I am reading something from Stephen Applebaum, who is an old friend of my father's. Even though he's Canadian, they're still friends. I'm gonna use my teacher voice if I can. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm not loving the mic. Craig, also a former teacher, great teacher voice. Probably shouldn't put the two teachers at the end because we speak well, we just talk right? We go. Time management is like, we're just gonna go. So I want to read Stephen's thing for you. He wasn't able to be here because he's out of town. It's here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Tribute to Sam Barash. First, I want to offer condolences to Sam's family and friends, who I know were collectively the most important things in Sam's life. To Sam, family, friends, and life were synonymous. It is particularly fitting that Sam's passing and this memorial came on as Hanukkah and Christmas coincide, which they rarely do. Sam navigated comfortably between Judaism and Christianity and respected the religious convictions of everyone in his life. We never missed a Christmas visit to Sam and Monica's house to add a new ornament to their tree or to sit in his beautiful garden that he was so proud of in the summer. It would take much more time than is available to fully and properly honor Sam's memory today, because there is so much that deserves to be shared. But here are a few of the many things that need to be said. Sam was truly, I can't pronounce this, a good neshama. Rob, did I get that right? This is good neshama, it's Yiddish. It's good soul. Is that right? Close enough. It's used to describe someone who's rare, with a beautiful character, a good heart, whose actions promote goodness and beauty in the world. Sam was a great friend, a colleague, a father, a brother, and like a grandfather to our daughters who loved him dearly. He had a tremendous impact on the life of myself, both personally and professionally. He was honest in every sense of the word and in action. His love and dedication to Monica was an example for all. They dedicated themselves to both of their extended families. Sam never missed an opportunity to boast about the accomplishments of Peter and occasionally Moji. It doesn't actually say that. And his grandchildren and nephews. I feel a little guilty saying some of these things in Sam's presence with him being unable to interject and hijack the conversation. No question, Sam was loquacious, a bit of a contrarian, and perhaps a curmudgeon. I'm glad we're getting this out, right? Curmudgeon. Strangely, though, these attributes are part of Sam's unique character and charm, and we will miss them. I propose that to honor Sam and keep his memory in our hearts, that we practice some of the favorite habits: be inquisitive, question everything and everybody. Do not accept no for an answer when you know you are right. Say what is on your mind without worrying about what others might think, and always start with a drink at the bar before you sit down to dinner. And finally, live life fully each day and take care of your loved ones. To Peter, Moji, all of his grandkids and nephews, to Manya and all of you, may Sam's memory be a blessing, and may his life and legacy continue to be a source of comfort and inspiration to all who remember him. Godspeed, Sam. Lily, Stephen, Lauren, Adam, Jessica, and Jeff. Greetings from Canada. Thank you. I love the common themes today. Clearly we've captured that he talked a lot. And the maxims. Those of you who knew him long enough probably heard him say, you get what you get and you don't get upset. Which is like such a load of crap, because he never gave in. If there was something that he wanted, he would tell you guys that. But it's like, I'm going to tell you a story about him fighting over a parking spot in a second. It's like you get what you get and you don't get upset until you actually get what you want, and then things are fine. That's the full maxim. Anyway, my father loved giving speeches. He talked about how long he would spend preparing for his sister's wedding, mitzvahs, my wedding. You started to get the sense that some of the speech giving maybe was a little more about him than it was about us. But his speeches were always great, and he always took great satisfaction in connecting with the audience and maybe making a couple people cry. Looking at you, Leah. You're my target audience tonight. I'm gonna go long. I apologize. I told him that I would send him out right. I may have inherited his gift for gab. We'll see. Anyway, good afternoon. I am Peter Barash, the son of Sam Barash, and in honor of my dad, and in the style of his voice, I have composed a 3-hour tribute in 10 parts to be performed in the rhyming style and rapping style of Hamilton. There will be no intermissions, so I hope you're all wearing your adult diapers. I did want to mention what a beautiful structure this was. We are steeped with Chicago history. A mayor is buried here. Otto Kerner is buried here. There's an entire section for loser Cub fans with a full outfield wall covered in ivy. But that's why the cemetery is special, because they will take anyone, even Cub fans. And my dad was a Sox fan. There was no love in his heart for the Cubs at all. So he would tell you that even in having the worst season in the history of baseball, the Sox demonstrated how great we were at losing. And whatever we were going to do, we were going to do the best to our ability. As the son of immigrants, my father loves the idea that this place takes everyone. Nobody got turned away. It was created because of that kind of exclusion. And he rejected that wholeheartedly. As someone who experienced anti-Semitism in his life at various stages of his life, he did not like bullies, and he did not like people who separated you because you were different. So this was a place that opened to him with open arms. My sister Moji, his nephew Kyle, his niece Jamie, you guys did an amazing job getting this place ready. This fantastic room is made even better with, Weekend at Bernie Sammy. Roasting in the sun. I am discouraging you from getting too close up there, because there was different phases of Sammy. This was not Beachbody Sammy phase. But it is truly, epitomizes who he was. And please notice all the many plants and platters that still have their tags on them, because in the spirit of my dad, that shit's going back tomorrow. So, I do want to take a moment before we get started to acknowledge my grandkids. I'm going to try and make it through this speech. I do want to mention that every time I cry, I've given my brother-in-law Dominic permission to come up here and smack me. And anyone else who would like to do it, the line is forming here to my left. But you have to go to the back of the line before you get to hit me twice. And hopefully that will help me get through this. But I wanted you to know how much he loved you guys. He told me he never could have imagined the pure joy generated from grandkids. And whether he expressed it directly to you or not, come on, Dominic. You think I'm kidding. He loved how unique you were. He loved the path in life that you took. He loved seeing you grow up. One of the last things he ever wrote was a card that said, "No grandfather could be more proud of their grandchildren." Sorry about that. So hold that with you when you think of him. He probably loved you more than he loves his daughter. Bring it. I was supposed to have rubber bands. I mean, this is going to be send off with sadomasochism. I did want to make sure I could mess with all of you a little bit before I spoke, so that the more of a mess that you were, I might be a little less of a wreck. So if that didn't do it for you, fuck. This is a holiday present that my father was not able to open. So he spent the last year or so of his life just constantly being cold. All of the old people in the room, you know what I'm talking about. Right? Couldn't get him warm enough socks, jackets. Oh, I want a sweater. All he wanted. Don't buy me anything, just get me blankets. We got him this phenomenal zip-up, huggy, snuggie, whatever you call these things. I'm wearing this shit while I'm giving this speech. It has cuffs, so he couldn't drop his sleeves in his soup. In his words, he would have said, "This is dope." There we go. This is when the rapping part starts. It's amazing. Any of the older people in the room, you are free to try this on. We'll be auctioning off at the end. So, I did want to take a moment to ask all of you just to take a second and take in this incredible room and this incredible collection of people who love my dad so much, and the reasons we're all here today, and just have a moment to let that soak in. And for most of you, that is the longest you've been in the room with Sam Barash without him talking. On behalf of my family, we are so grateful you guys are here today to celebrate the life of Sammy. You are all part of his journey. You shared his love and his warmth, laughs. Occasionally you saw the Boston dark side of Sammy, which usually came out when he got pretty drunk. It means the world to all of us to share this day with you. I am one for seeing the signs in the universe around us, and I've noticed a few the past few days. I got in my car after learning that my dad had passed just as Eddie Vedder's version of the English beat song Save It for Later came on the radio. And if you know this version that just was in the season premiere of The Bear this last season, you know that why this song brought me the peace and reflectiveness that I needed in that moment. It was perfect. And then yesterday, as I was leaving my house, I was cornered. I was coming here to arrange this. I got cornered by a girl. She was maybe 7 years old. She was wearing her brownie sash, and she cornered me to buy Girl Scout cookies. She said she lived on my block 3 houses down. I swear to God, I've never seen this girl in my life. She had just enough teeth missing to be adorable versus like an extra in Deliverance. She spoke with a little lisp as she told me how much she loved Thin Mints. And I thought to myself, I swear, if my father was a toothless 7-year-old Girl Scout, this would have been his cookie pitch. And like so many of his pitches in his life, I couldn't say no. I bought way too many cookies. But she made me think about my dad in that moment, and I was so grateful for that random encounter that I easily could have missed. And like this girl, boy could my dad get things done. It has come to be known as barashing, both a noun and a verb for those of you grammar geeks out there. It's the act of persuading someone to agree to something they have no business granting you, but you ask for it anyway. Hopefully most of you were on the right side of being barashed. If you knew my dad long enough, you were likely brought into one of his many schemes. He brought everyone into something eventually. Some of these things may have been criminal acts, but we did them anyway. I mean, honestly, for those of you who know him long enough, isn't it miraculous that this dude didn't end up in jail at some point for all these things that he did? When he was in Colorado on a business trip with CCC, it might have been Carlos Quintana. I don't know, you guys will remember. Oh no, Carlos Quintana was on the White Sox, but Carlos. He showed up at the home of a man who owed my sister money and was refusing to pay it. And in his dark suit, standing next to this other man in his dark suit, he proceeded to address this person with an ominous tone and ominous statements of facts and questions of how he's going to resolve this. And he was perfectly, he didn't say he was coming from an organized crime family, but he was perfectly happy to let this guy believe it as he literally was shitting his pants, figuring out how he was going to pay my sister back. He may have asked his assistant at CCC to forge a birth certificate for me. And he may have coached me how to walk into the DMV in Wisconsin to get a real Wisconsin ID, which definitely would have been a felony if that actually happened. It may have involved getting a real birth certificate and a fake birth certificate and laying them on top of each other, and then slicing them with a letter opener, taking the real bottom and the fake top, putting them together, folding them back up with the letter that came from the city, also sliced at the same time, and putting it back in the envelope to present to the woman at the DMV and say, oh my God, I must have sliced this with my letter opener when I was opening the envelope. And it worked. It worked, and to this day I'm like, why did this woman ask what 21-year-old is actually using a letter opener, right? And maybe, just maybe, she didn't imagine that some father would have such an elaborate scheme just so his kid could drink 8 months before he was actually turning 21. And my dad had no problem asking me to commit a felony, which in hindsight is kind of bothersome. He was the engineer at work, who was always a few steps ahead with his elaborate schemes. His abuse of the Nordstrom return policy was the stuff of legends. He would demand returns for shirts years after he had worn them, claiming that his collar size had changed, because Dad went through phases of skinny Sammy and not so skinny Sammy, and his collar size would change. So he wasn't happy with that. So he demanded that they return the shirt because clearly the collar must have changed sizes because his neck size couldn't have changed. And the person looking at him being like, dude, seriously, are you really doing this? And he demanded it, and he always got new shirts. I think he bought like 3 shirts from Nordstrom's, and they lasted him like 35 years. He did it with a straight face. They always gave in. One time at 640 North LaSalle, where many of us worked at various points, you guys definitely did more than me. There was an abandoned office, and we found a desk that had some leftover letterhead in it from a law firm. And immediately my dad and I were like, ooh, this could be fun. So for a couple of years until we ran out of it, he would write like cease and desist letters, or you need to take care of this, or you're gonna be sued letters, where he never claimed to be an attorney. But he was perfectly happy to have it be implied by this letterhead of this now defunct law firm. Again, that has to be a crime, right? Like, that has to be a crime. But he loved it, and that was so much fun for him. His worst one, though, we went to a Cub game. If you've ever tried to park around Wrigley Field, you know it's impossible unless you're actually going to a lot. He would never do that. And he spotted a parking spot about a block away. And so he's driving down the street, he's on the wrong side of the street, and someone is now backing into the parking spot, and he rolls down his window, and the sweetest voice said, "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, that's my spot." And she was like, "I don't understand, like, I'm literally parking in this spot, what do you mean it's your spot?" He goes, "Oh, well, I saw it like a block away, and I was coming over to park here, and I would like my spot." And this poor girl, she was in her 20s, living in Reggville, thinking she was living the life, had no idea what she was about to encounter. Like, it went on for like 10 minutes, and it was like, "But I'm literally in the spot." He goes, "Yeah, but it's my spot." And he just wouldn't leave, and she finally relented. And I'm in the back seat, and I'm dying. I think it's the funniest thing ever, and Monica was so embarrassed. Monica's like this over there, and my dad just ate it up, because that was what it was. It wasn't about what you got. It was about the competition of seeing if you could get it, right? And he's probably done that to all of you. At some point or another, he probably talked you out of money to Thanksgiving dinner or something. So this was what my dad did. My dad, these are funny stories, but more often than not, his schemes actually had good intentions. They were actually meant to help people, because that's what he liked to do. There's a contradiction in style and intention that was part of his charm. You know, he didn't always do things the right way, but he always did them for the right reasons. My father loved the connections that he made with people and the joy of knowing that he could help people when they needed it most. Many of you felt that directly in your own times of need and times of joy. Sadly, we don't have everyone here with us today who impacted my dad's journey. Come on, Dominic. He lost, it's not a real story. No, you'll actually get me. My father lost his brother Mikey way too early. Those two were like best buddies and complete troublemakers. The world was safer without them together, but man, did they miss out. He found the love of his life the second time around in Monica, and we lost her traumatically and way too early. We lost Monica's teddy bear of a brother, Scott, way too soon. And with those losses, though, came responsibilities and opportunities. My father was able to play a small father figure role in the lives of his nieces and nephews. And it was tragic that this was necessary, but he considered it one of the great honors of his life to play some small part in being a part of your family, helping you guys grow up. He found strength to deal with his own losses, in your strength as you faced your own losses. There we go. Thanks, Max. Appreciate it. Found my target. He also loved bringing people into his passions. Maybe you were one of the folks who wrote onto the sailboat with him when he was going through his Captain Sammy phase. That was fucking weird. Literally, he had a poor Monica. If you were a beach buddy of his, you knew that he was never more at home than in a chair at the beach. That was the happiest version of Sammy. And perhaps you're one of the lucky ones to experience the horses directly with him. And love how many of you brought up the horse races. While everyone else was picking horses by names and colors and hoping to win money, my dad loved working that racing form to handicap the race, teach others how to handicap for themselves, and to help people learn to love the race more than the winning. And yes, Kyle, he was completely taking advantage of you because you were his favorite. Nothing perhaps excited my father more, though, than good conversation. And by that, I mean him talking. It may surprise you, and tell me if this resonates with you, that he, like me, is mostly an introvert who preferred listening to talking. Just holler if it sounds right. He was really shy. Generally unopinionated. Appreciated the calm silence in that conversation when no one was talking. Always demonstrated great sensitivity to others in his choice of words and telling stories or jokes to make sure no one's feelings were hurt. maybe. Okay, not him or me. He was none of these things. But again, that was his charm. You didn't get offended by his jokes. You felt love that he was willing to hurt your feelings by telling the joke to you. And that was great. And seriously, he really did love great conversation. He loved talking, but he truly appreciated learning, and he truly appreciated the exchange of ideas, and so many of you here were a part of that. The greatest sign of respect my father could give was his willingness to hear you out, and even more so, to admit that you were right. Didn't happen a lot, but it was there, and that was high praise. He cherished his time with friends and colleagues. He was energized by the problem solving of a good issue. Always the engineer. He had a solution for everything, though some of his ideas were half-baked. Peter, a solve Middle East peace in 3 steps. Or, Peter, I figured out how to fix American healthcare. 3 steps. And some simpler ones. Peter, McCaskies are fucking idiots, and they need to go. We can make it happen in 3 steps. While he had many great professional moments, I am not sure that he was ever more alive than riding with the original Cowboys in CCC. And you guys were Cowboys. This is where he got a taste of the startup world. This dude was telling stories about you in CCC, literally, to the nurses, up until the very end. To the point where I had to intervene because I was afraid these nurses would not come back because the dude was telling them stories about an insurance company. And they're like, okay, there are other people dying I need to tend to. So, but for him, it wasn't really an insurance story. It was no different than handicapping the races. It was a challenge of a problem to be solved, a race to be won. He fucking loved his years with you guys and all of the schemes that you came up with to get that idea off the ground and turned into something. He loved every bit of it, and no one's gonna know what I'm gonna say now except for you guys until you sold it to Phillips. And then it fell apart. But his time with you guys was great. Some of you were part of creating the illusion of a working internet to close a deal. I heard that story where you faked an actual working internet. Some of you were a part of stealing something. Where are you? There's a thief in here somewhere. And I'm going to leave out the details due to statute of limitation issues. I will just say that he had so much fun with you because he loved who he was doing it with. That made those days special to him. It wasn't the work, it was the people. In his 3rd act, he joined a street gang known as Older Than Dirt. His coffee clutch, which I don't know why you just don't call yourself a coffee clutch like the rest of the old people. This gang of old white guys, they take over a French pastry shop. Like my dad's greaser buddies used to take over a pool hall in the 50s, right? But they're the most loving street gang you're ever gonna encounter, as long as you are not trying to take their little table and back. He lived to spend time with you, eating macarons, whatever they're called, drinking coffee, talking about everything under the sun. You guys helped him ease into retirement when he didn't know what to do with himself. But even more so, you helped him get through the loss of Monica. My family cannot thank you enough for that. What a blessing to find a group of guys so late in life. In your lives, so late in your lives, because you guys are really old. You guys really are older than dirt. What a bunch of mensches, he would say. And he cherished those times. And literally, the last day, the haircut, Vanille, taking the bagel. I think it literally killed him. No, he came back and he's like, that was the greatest fucking day. And he's like, I'm so exhausted. He's like, it was worth it. I mean, you guys hit all the marks. Thank you for making that possible. And then there's the Boston friends. Not many of them left, but what a legendary bunch of misfits. They knew each other since single digits. Harry, Barry, the Colonel, Lenny. These guys are just going to be causing trouble wherever it is they go next. They were the epitome of friendship. They knew how to cause trouble together, but they could 60 years later to be talking about it like it had just happened. The license plate story is epic. And what's amazing is, as they grew older, they had these massive personality differences between each other. It just didn't matter because the bond they had forged at that young age was forever for them, because that was the theme that you all touched on. And with my dad, it was forever. Most of us would be lucky to have a single friend like that. He had a small army of them. And that brings me to the end of my introduction. No, I'm actually just about done. I want your attention, because this is important stuff now. So no phones, no turning to your neighbor to mock me, Ian. Thankfully, Ryan's not here. My dad and I spoke a lot about legacy at the end. Here's what I gained from those talks. That my father's legacy is in those relationships he built with all of you, but also with his mechanic and his second mechanic, because he needed to. His favorite restaurant server. That broke my heart a little bit to hear how he's treating waiters around you. The woman who brought him his oatmeal. It didn't matter. He loved making connections. He just put smiles on people's faces. Like, it just didn't matter. As I try to glean insights from a life well lived, this is where I've settled today, and so pay attention. 2 things. Death is incorrectly seen as an ending. It's not an ending for he's never going to stop being my dad. He is never going to stop being your friend. And we don't stop being sons or daughters or spouses when someone dies. These things are forever. So that's point 1. Point 2. Friendship has no expiration date. Sammy lives forever in our stories, but really more in the way we choose, or not, we choose to live our lives. How we treat each other with respect and dignity. How we stand up for what's right. How we punch a bully in the mouth when it's necessary. How, like the Force in Star Wars, we use barashing to improve the lives of others and the world in general. Because it is not something to be done lightly. I can strive to build on these forever principles, and I can pass them through to my students, and I can share them with my children and future generations of my family. Someone's gonna say, where the hell did that maxim, you get what you get and you don't get upset, come from? Generations from now, where did that Sammy guy, whatever his last name was. In closing, my father left this world a richer man for the people he collected along the way, who inspired him and taught him, shared a glass, shared a laugh. To my dad, I will say, well fucking done. And thank you for modeling how to see the real value of a life well lived. And for my father, who cannot be here to say this to you, he will say, thank you to all of you for helping you live a wonderful life. And he loves you. So, if anyone needs drugs after this, my sister and Matt usually have the good stuff. Seek them out. Thank you truly for being here today. Even my sister. She's crazy, but she gets shit done. And I really don't think we could have pulled this together. So thank you. You don't suck. Love you. For anyone who's interested, we're going to be opening my father's home, I don't know, in about 45 minutes. It was supposed to be 3:45, but like I said, we all go long. Anyone who dares to enter, there's probably too much alcohol there. There's definitely way too many joints. The not suitable for work Sammy stories will definitely be shared if you choose to go there. Parking's going to suck. You can park on the street. If you stay after 6, I have stickers for you. You can spot hero the parking lot not far away from my dad's house and walk a block if you want. and there's parking there as well. And the final thing I want to share with you, I picked up a final sign this morning as I was getting ready for today, again in my car, when the band's The Last Waltz popped up. Are we ready? Oh no, we're not ready. For those of you who know that album, it is the ultimate goodbye album. The band chose to have a huge banquet and send off with all of the artists who ever influenced them in their lives and put on the greatest fucking concert of all time, which is probably also the greatest concert movie of all time. So it's the ultimate send-off album for the ultimate send-off day. So don't tell me that the universe is random, because The Last Waltz just popped up right when I needed it. So as my father catches the cannonball to take them all down the line, he's doing fine. He's going back to Miss Monica, because she's the only one that gives me some peace. Smile on my face. Thank you. Steve, who I just saw walking around here, was nice enough to let us go over. So this concludes the celebration of Sammy. Again, please join us at his house to continue if you'd like. Thank you for taking some time out of your life to share with our family. All right, you can go now.
Hello. Are you guys coming back with Macari now? Yeah. All right. We're planning on leaving you guys, but all right. I'm gonna use the restroom, and then whenever you guys are ready. I guess. Yeah.